Welcome to Legend Makers, the podcast where education's true heroes take center stage.
Shine like a ray from the sun. There's something people look for but never can find.
We are here, Legend Makers podcast with none other than Gavin McCormack. Gavin, I've got, probably we could talk for hours, and we're going to get into it. But what we were doing is we were just starting to chat and talk about how we met and how we connected. We were talking about curly hair and all this great stuff. And I'm thinking to myself, we should be recording this because this is where all the good stuff is, not when we go, okay, action. Then all, so it's good to see you, my friend. I met you during the pandemic online, and it's been a while since we've talked. So look, your introduction, I could read a bio on you. I couldn't cover it because you're such an amazing, I watch the things that you do. You're one of those people that other people go, wow, that guy's living life. So tell us about yourself, because I just won't do it justice.
I'll try my best. Thanks for the compliment, but I always say that everyone's trying their best to do what they can with what they've got, right? And I think I'm a teacher ultimately, right? So in the back of my mind always, I just, although I'm not working in the classroom anymore, I always try to conceptualize that the children are watching me, and I better be the role model or the exemplar for them to then say, I can do that. I can do anything. Anything's achievable. And when I say anything in terms of success, I don't mean money or Maseratis, or I mean doing stuff that makes you happy, makes you tick, makes your heart sing, everything that you do. That's why, I'm also, very, you're a role model to many people too, and I've watched what you've done over the years. And it's people like me, you, and Cran and Anusha and these guys who don't stop. They just keep going. You got to stick to your guns. You got to find out what makes you tick. So just very short. I'm a teacher ultimately, and I became a school principal. I have a school. I've built quite a few schools over in the Himalayas, and some teacher training centers. I've written some children's books. But everything I do, I try to make learning real for children so they can have an experience through this thing we call education, not just get dragged through, the halls and learn the facts and do the exam, and you better pass. If you don't pass, you're going to be a failure. That's not true. We know it's not true. Right. But to sum it all up, 3 years ago, me and a mate of mine, Richard Mills, we opened upschool.co, which was basically a platform to bring children free education that would literally change the way that they saw learning. And 3 years in, we're just reflecting on our 3-year anniversary a few days ago. I could go on all day. We've seen children plant forests with 25,000 trees. We've seen children build houses for homeless people. We've seen just remarkable things happen around the world when you give children freedom, you give them inspiration. And in those 3 years, we've delivered lessons from, we've been up Everest, we've been to the North Pole, we've been to the South Pole, we've been to South Georgia, we've been to Bangalore, Costa Rica, we just went to Iceland, we're heading to Greenland, and we try to bring the kids the most inspirational content they can to get them hooked, and then let them go with it. But we have one very important difference of what we do. And this is fundamental. Our qualifier of success in education is this: did the work that you have just completed make the world better? And if it did, you've succeeded. It doesn't matter if your grandma smiles because you made her a card on butterflies and she loves butterflies, or you planted a forest with 25,000 trees to bring birds into a new habitat. Both of those are on the spectrum of success. And I think if we live by that mantra as children and as adults, the world would not be in the pickle that it's in today.
Yeah. Wow. That's incredible. I watch you, and you're always that person that I go, see, because I'm kind of become a homebody, and you're not tethered anywhere. Like, you just go. And I watched you in the North Pole, and I've watched you reach base camp, and we followed. And for those of you that don't know Gavin, and I'm surely a lot of you do, but for those that don't, you must follow him. And where can we follow you? I know you've recently got off of Facebook. just because for various reasons. But where are you active? Where can people follow you and see what you're doing? Because it's amazing.
Look, yeah, I did leave a few social media platforms recently for various
Mhm.
reasons. We won't go into that, but
Mhm.
LinkedIn is where I usually am, and you can find me online. Just Google. You can find. I have a blog. I have a lot of visitors that come to that blog. It's mainly educational, but I post a lot of the things that we do there, of course. But for any of the people who are interested in anything we just said, you can just go to upschool.co and you'll find
Mhm.
everything there we just talked about. Especially if you're a teacher or a parent or a child is like, I'd love to learn about that stuff and do some work. I have a saying, which is when children find out how good it feels to do good, that's all they want to do. And that's
Yeah.
true. Like when you get that feeling, I just did a good thing, I made someone smile, I grew a vegetable, or I'm eating my own sweet potato that I grew myself, or whatever. You just want to do that more because you're designed to feel good when you do good, and you're designed to feel bad when you do bad things. That's just in your brain. It's neuroscience. And if you want to do good, you want to feel good, then I'm here to help.
And it compounds, doesn't it? Either way. So that
Yeah.
bad begets bad. I think you fall into that because I think about me when I was a kid. I was I think, oh, you would have been amazing to have met when I was 10, 11,
If I, if
kind of
you'd have met
lost,
me, if we were
floundering.
both 10, if we were both 10, I'm guessing we were about 10 at the same time. Um,
Possibly.
I I don't think you would have liked to have met me. I was very quiet. I was scared of the
Well, I'm
world.
thinking now, if I were 10 now and you were you and I'd met a teacher that walked into my life like you, and I had some great ones that kind of came into my life later on, but early in my life, I was really lost and I was in a lot of trouble. I found an old psychiatric evaluation of mine, and that's in the moment, it's a snapshot in time. But it really says your past does not define you. And I contemplated it putting it out because
Mm.
it was scathing. It was hard to read. I was in deep, deep trouble. It was 1980. I was 14, so that'll give you a sense of how old I am. You can do the math. I think I'm a
Yeah,
little
right.
older than you. But
No, we're like almost the same age.
oh, that's so if I had met a teacher like you at the time, because I think you're right. The kids can fall into these pits of despair, and that tends to perpetuate itself. But on the other side of it, the good, when you start to plant your own vegetables, reforest, do something right for reforestation. Think of how magnificent that is. And you feel that. You feel it. It's innate, right? You feel that inside you. It perpetuates more of that. It's like either way. And I think
Sure.
you push kids in that direction, and then the flywheel kind of starts. If it sets, it starts to happen, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, look, I've just written a book on this. I've just written a book with Simon and Schuster on raising resilient children, right? And it comes
Mm,
out in September, and
okay.
it'll be in every bookshop in the world, which is very cool. But in writing that book, I had to do a lot of research on neuroscience, which was really, really important, and child psychology. And for any parents or teachers listening to this is like absolutely 101. If I had to
Mm,
just tell you one thing that was really important when it comes to children and how to get them on the right path. And hopefully, when I say this, you'll say, that happened to me, that actually nudged me in the right direction. And it's this theory, it's called the theory of mattering, like mattering. I matter, right?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So check this out. Um, if a child, it's interesting with a children's brain, right? Because the brain is just so good at learning. Like it's actually too good at learning. This is the problem, that it can learn all day, every day from everywhere, right? From
mm-hmm.
everywhere. So regardless of whether it's looking or listening or talking to someone that is a good influence or a bad influence, the brain just goes, that's information. I need to learn that. It's
Mm-hmm.
coming at me, so let's absorb it. Now, what's really cool about the brain that I learnt whilst writing the book was that the brain's got this thing, this shut off, right? Where it goes, I don't trust you, right? So I'm not learning from you. So if you
How does that
don't
happen?
trust,
Uh-huh.
the brain basically, there's different sections of the brain, but you have this part of the brain, the reptilian brain, right?
Yeah.
Which is like where the nervous system enters the brain. It goes up the spine. It's just at the base of the spine here. Then your hippocampus and all this stuff's in here. And so to get in there, the reptilian brain's got to be open. And if it's closed or open, right? If it's closed, you're not getting in. It's just entry is zero, right? It's
And
just
what
not
would
happening.
close it? I'm sorry to interrupt, but how does it close?
But there's multiple ways. There's like if I'm scared, if I'm hungry is one of them, but this lack of trust, right?
Uh-huh.
This is the 101. So if I trust you, right, then it's game on. My brain's like, I trust you. You're in my inner circle,
Open.
and I need to learn from you because the brain's got one primary objective, and that's to stay alive, to keep you alive. That's it. Keep this person alive as long as possible. That's the brain's job, right? Learning and beating your heart and blinking your eyes, they're all just things that keep you alive. And that's the job of the brain, right? So if I trust you, then there's a very good chance that you want to keep me alive because I trust you. And therefore, if you want to keep me alive, I better listen to you. I better learn from you because you're going to teach me the things that are going to keep me alive the longest. That's why, we always, the parents have so much influence over children because automatically the brain's like, well, trust this person. They actually pushed you out. Like they gave birth to you. So listen to them and look at them. Now, let's go to teachers. So you go to school and your teacher doesn't engage with you, doesn't look you in the eye, doesn't know anything about your life, just says, come on, in, get in, books out, let's go. Chop, chop, we've got to learn. I'm under a schedule here. Let's go. Thomas, what are you doing? Stop talking. La, la, la. Public humiliation. Here are the grades. I'm going to read out the schools, everyone's schools in order. You're the top, you're the bottom, blah, 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 blah. At that point, some of the children go, you know what? You haven't spoken to me. You haven't looked me in the eye. You haven't engaged with me. You haven't shook my hand. Yeah, you don't know my name. You haven't called me by name. You haven't even acknowledged that I'm in the room. On top of that, you read out my grade to the class, and I was 20th out of 30. I'm humiliated. You've shamed me. You're now out of my trust zone. I'm sorry. I just don't trust you, so I'm not learning from you. Brain off. Now, on the other side, there's a teacher when the kids come to school. We've all seen these viral videos with the handshakes at the door. They all come out of the US. Teachers at the door. I'm your teacher, Scott. You're in my class. You're 10. And hey, morning, Scotty. How are you, mate? How was last night? I hear that you've got a new drone and you were flying it around. Did you get any good footage? And suddenly in your brain goes, hey, this person knows about my life, has been thinking about my life, is interested in my life. They're down on one knee. They're looking me in the eye. They're even shaking my hand. Hey, Scotty, okay, I'm so proud of you. I'm so, I love to learn more about these drones. Maybe one day you can teach me how to fly a drone. I matter to them. The theory of mattering. Now, my brain says, because I matter to them, because your brain, Scott, goes, I matter to Gavin, my teacher. That person cares about me. And if that person cares about me, well, they want to keep me alive. So therefore, put them in the trust circle. And once you and your brain know that I care about you and you trust me, brain's open and ready to go and learn. And so, out of all the stuff I researched in this book and everything, the theory of mattering is very simple. If you want your children, regardless if they're students or your own children, to listen to you and learn from you and take on what you're trying to say or model, you have to let them know that they matter to you. Give them time, look them in the eye, hold their hand, be interested in their life. When they're talking, listen and listen carefully. Like all these little things, amazing and just so interesting to me to realize that when I did this research for the book, I realized like, oh my God, like in most classrooms in the world, even in my classroom, for the first 15 years of my life as a teacher, I was not letting the kids know that they mattered. And therefore, probably half the stuff I told them or tried to implement fell on deaf ears.
Just through. Yeah. Except I have a question because as you were saying the matter principle, what I immediately went to, and I think this maybe happens the more you are exposed to people that say that you matter, especially as a young person. And I think it starts at home and then into the classroom. But I thought you were going to go to, you have to believe that you matter to yourself. That's, I think, almost the superpower. At least for me, it's been my experience later in life that when I finally realized the self, of that I matter, and not in an ego way, but in a self-love kind of caring way, that yeah, I do matter. I'm important in my own way. I contribute to the world. And I think goes back to your thing of being good, of good things, because when I was in bad zone, of course, you said that it's bad. And so how can I trust that bad person staring back at me in the mirror versus I'm in the good zone because of so many other things, great teachers, parents, experiences, proximity to peers, the proximity factor, right? You are kind of who you are with. And then you look in the mirror and you go, I trust that person, but that's me. And I think, am I onto something?
Yeah, I mean you're on the money. I mean, it's like from an adult's perspective, that's all good and well because you have that existential eye that can look down upon yourself, right? From a child's perspective, when you're young, it's quite hard to go above yourself, let's say in a drone and look down at yourself. Do I trust him
Yeah,
walking
yeah,
around?
yeah.
Is that the person I want to be? For children, it's really interesting because going back to this theory of mattering, it links very strongly to trust.
Mm-hmm.
So, you talked about I matter and I contribute. That contribute part is really important because in order to feel like you matter, you have to actually be doing something in the community or society or giving something back to go, hey, look, I'm actually assisting the world to be a better place. I'm doing what I can. Now, you can only do that in an environment where you feel that mistakes
Yeah.
are okay. So
Mm-hmm.
if you go to class, your teacher's like, you already matter to your teacher, you're feeling safe. You're like feeling safe. I mean, let's go back one step. If I shake your hand just at the door, right? You come to the door and I shake your hand. I'm not talking about hugging, sitting on your knee. All of this is against the law, and I don't condone any of that.
Yeah, fist
Shaking your
bump,
hand
high
is
five, whatever it is, the acknowledgement, right? I seen those videos of the kids coming in and they all
yes,
doing the thing.
they're okay. Shaking the hand is different,
Even
right?
better.
And I'll tell you why in a second. Yeah, even better. In fact, the best. I would recommend it to any teacher out there. Stand at the door, shake their hand. 10 seconds. Good morning. How are you, Scotty? All good? Our hands are touching. Our skin's touching. This is really cool. This is actually really cool. So in your brain, your biggest organ is your skin, right? That's your
Mm-hmm.
biggest organ in your body. And your brain knows when your skin is touching skin. So if I touch my own hand, my brain goes, hey, you're touching skin, but that's your skin. I know it's your skin, right? It knows its own skin. Now I touch somebody else's skin, right? I shake your hand at the door, Scotty. Good morning, Scotty. How are you? How are you? How's your evening with your drone? Your brain goes, you're touching skin. That's not your skin. That's somebody else's skin. Now, your brain, it's really cool, this. Your brain goes, if you're touching somebody else's skin from a prolonged period, 10 seconds, that means you trust them. And if you trust them, although I can't see who it is you're touching, I know that there's two of you now. And if there's two humans, you're now 100% safer than you were when there was only one of you, because there's two of you now, right? And if you're safer, well, let me just release some hormones into your bloodstream that are going to make you feel really safe. Let me lower your heart rate and let me lower your blood pressure. So you shake a kid's hand at the door, look him in the eye, send him into class. They're already less anxious than they were, way less. I think it's like 30 to 50% less anxious. Then you send them in and then you tell them, by the way, we're going to learn about this thing, or you're going to try this new thing, or I want you to work in a group you haven't worked with before, or experiment or create something. They feel safer. And when they feel safer, they push the envelope. They try new things. They do things because they're not worried that they're going to be reprimanded or humiliated or made to look stupid in front of the class. And therefore, they love learning. And this whole process of the lifelong love of learning starts with that. And when you do that, you then have students who do new things and they can innovate and contribute. And when you know that you're doing something new and you're contributing to the classroom or society or the community, you know that you matter now. And you grow in confidence, you grow in self-esteem, your self-efficacy increases. So, like the tiny little things, they're not big, they're small.
Yeah.
They make the biggest difference in the lives of our children. And sorry, I just want to finish with this.
Yeah.
When I was at school, I also struggled a lot.
Okay.
I was poor. We lived in a community where people were not poor. We didn't have anything, although my parents worked very, very hard and tried their best, and it was amazing. But it's quite clearly, we didn't have what the other kids had. And it wasn't until I was 16 when a teacher pulled me to one side. Mr. McKenney was his name. And he said, "Hey, Gavin," he's my geography teacher. And, I was struggling just to stay afloat in school. I was hiding my lunch because I didn't have to see what I was eating and all this. Anyway, whatever.
Hmm.
He said, I see that you've put on your career chart that you want to be a teacher. I said, "I'd love to be a teacher. I like working with children at the youth club." And he said, "You've got no chance of being a teacher, not with these grades. 2 Fs and 2 Es predicted in your A levels. You've got no chance." But he said, "I can see you love geography. And I can see there's a spark in your eye in my class." He said, "I tell you what, you listen to me for 6 months. I'll give you some guidance. You do what I say. You go home and do these little projects that I set you. And then when it comes to the end of the exams, I reckon you can drag your E to a C. And if you get a C, you'll get into teaching college." So I said, so suddenly I was like, this guy believes in me. I matter to him. I only realized this recently, right? In reflection.
Yeah.
Like, I mattered to him. He let me know. He knew he'd seen me and he was going to help me. So I did what he said. And I got a C. I got 2 Es, a D, and a C. And I got into teaching college and became a teacher because of this guy. And I only, when writing the book, I realized, I remember sitting at this table going, how did I get to be a teacher? How did I get to where I am? Like, what was the moment? And I reflected for a very, very long time. And I realized it was that moment when he said, "Gavin, can you stay behind?"
Mm-hmm. That's great.
He literally changed the entire trajectory of my life through that.
Life.
Just letting me know, you know what? I see you and you matter to me and I'm going to help you. And here we are,
That's amazing. And some kids obviously need that more than others, right? I mean, I too was like, I was different. I wasn't shy. I was shot out of a cannon. I was like, the spotlight, if it's not on me, I'm going to make it on me. So I was completely
Right.
different, very disruptive. So they wanted to quiet me down, right? That was my problem. I think my attention was a get. But yeah, I got sent away. So I went to a place where that was what they did. I went to a character education school. I went to
Oh, wow.
something called Hyde School. It was founded in 1966 by Joe Gald as an alternative to standard traditional education. And we focused on character building. It was leadership, courage, curiosity, integrity, concern. We were our brother's keepers. We lived by a code of ethics, not rules. It was the hardest thing that I'd ever done in my life. We all had to take sports. We all had to perform in performing groups, sing, dance, conquer fear, get out of our shells, or do what it was. So I'm with you. I watch how you teach and I look at your methodology and I'm 100% bought in. Because I just think I think even now more than ever, it's the way that, because the rote information, we don't need really that much anymore. Everything's right. It's all here.
Yeah.
Like I need what we need is strong character, real good people, right? Strong character, self-worth, in a good way, not an ego way, but in a very humble kind of grateful with humility, and the ability to be resilient and persevere through change, because Lord knows there's going to be a lot of it coming, particularly in professional states with artificial intelligence and things like that moving in. You don't know. Tomorrow could look very different than today. And if you're not equipped for that, I think, and I think you do that. I think what you do is the way that your approach to teaching is unique in that way. And I'm telling you, anybody that's not following you should be following you, teacher or not. I just think you're fun to watch because I think you're pretty incredible.
Yeah, I'm lucky. I'm lucky to go to these places, and I've got to give a shout out to Aurora Expeditions because they take me to these places. They're
Aurora
we're
Expeditions.
We're a partner with these guys, and they're the ones who own the ship and say, "Look, we want to provide this education to these children, so get on the ship. We'll take you to Antarctica and just teach from there." But and I totally agree with you, and it's interesting to hear your story. The kind of when I was writing the book, I started to research the history of education. I wanted to know where it went wrong, because the thing is, it is wrong now. There's no question about it. Our children ultimately are in competition with each other. And they're in competition because our schools are in competition. Who's top of the rankings chart? Why are our schools in competition? Because our countries are in competition on the PISA rankings from the OECD, which is the top country. So if you're going to globally compete, against each of those countries, then your schools are going to do it internally, and then your kids are doing it in the classroom. And we know psychologically that competition, they say competition is healthy. It really isn't healthy in a classroom when there's only one winner and there's 29 losers. And the one winner is so stigmatized by being top of the class that it's almost like they lost anyway.
Hmm.
Because, no one likes being out of the group. No one likes
Hmm.
being this person on the stage while there's 29 other people in the classroom going, well, I tried my best. I also have skills. You just haven't recognized them. They weren't in the exam. Where's the exam on kindness? I've been really kind this term. I've helped loads of insects on the way to school. I've moved snails out of the road every day. I've rescued a kitten from the street. Where's the award for that?
Yeah.
So the reality is that we've got it wrong. And
Hmm.
it was interesting in the research about the history of education. I know we all know, Victorian Britain, where people had to go to the factory, and that's what we're still living, and we are. That's a fact. But when
Hmm.
you go back, we actually had it right a very long time ago. You go back to Indigenous Australians.
Hmm.
They used to sit under the stars and tell stories and learn about how to live with and on the land. So it was sustained because you were part of the land.
Hmm.
And my favorite part of the history of education, in actual fact, comes from India. It comes from the word guru. We all know the word guru.
Hmm.
Guru in Hindi means teacher. And so think about this. This is very cool. So it's kind of like the beginning of the school building, where the school building came from. And so what would happen in ancient India was you wanted to send your son to school to be educated, right? Now, it was only sons, daughters were at home, and, that was the old days. It's obviously not
Hmm.
today, thank God. But you wanted to send your son to be educated. So what would you do? There's no schools, but there were wise men in your community, these gurus. And these wise men would live a certain type of life, right? So you would choose your guru as a parent based on that person, how they lived. You say, I want my son to be like that guru. That guru is kind and persistent and determined and has all these wonderful values and this kind of character. I want my son to be like him. So you would send your son to the guru. I think it was from like the age of 4 to 15. You'd send him for 11
Wow.
years. They wouldn't come
Wow.
back.
No,
So the
just
guru
completely
would take them
gone.
away. You're gone. They
Never
go
come
into
home.
never come home. They go into the
Wow.
forest, to the ashram in the forest, and they would learn how to be the kind of person that the guru was in the forest, living on the land, learning about values and all these things, right? At 15, they'd come home and they would bring back the man that you sent them away to be. They would be living under the shadow of this guru who would be
Uh-huh.
wise, about life and la 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 la. They come back and they deliver you back a parcel, which was your son, who is now a man, who was everything you wanted him to be.
Wow.
And I don't like the fact the child went away for so long, but I do love the fact that the parents would say, not what do I want him to be, a doctor, a surgeon, a da da da. What character and what values do we
Who
want
do
him
I
to
want
have?
him to be?
Who do I want him to become? And I think we, as a race now, as a human race, we forget to ask that question when we've got
Mm.
a little baby sitting in the pushchair, and we sit around and we're like, so what do you want little Tommy to be? So, well, I really would love him to be a doctor or a surgeon or a dentist or something like that. We don't say, who do you want him to be? Well, I
God, I
want him to be
agree with
kind.
you so much on that. And I
I
think,
want him to be kind. I want him to be caring. I want him to have
yeah.
empathy. And then the next step is, when you've decided who, the question then is, are we living by those values that we want him to become? Because we are his
Mhm.
guru. And he is going to
Absolutely.
look at us.
Oh,
And what
yeah.
we are, he will become. If we're in the car and someone cuts in front of us and we're like, get out of my way, what the hell do you think you're doing? The child's going to think, all right. So when somebody interrupts my equilibrium, I get angry, I'm
Hmm.
aggressive, and I blame them.
Hmm.
If someone pulls in the front of the car and you're aware of who you want them to be, and you say, hey, you're probably on the way to the hospital, get in here, no problem. We've got all the time, no rush. Your child goes, someone interrupts me. They're probably in a desperate situation, make
Yeah.
room. So if we just ask that question of ourselves as teachers and as parents, who, not what, we can change the whole world really quick.
Absolutely. I believe that. The character
Yeah,
of
I
the
agree.
person, right? I mean, it's the character of the person. I think that's amazing. And I do agree. I get goosebumps when I think about it because I was never, that wasn't how I was raised. And I wasn't even raised with what? I just floated around. I had no idea who or what I was, literally, for
Yeah.
the longest time in my life. And I think that when I got to a certain age and realized that, it was a wake up call. It was shocking to me because I think innately I had a good self opinion of myself, but I wasn't living up to it. And then when you reach a certain age, you kind of, I think your mortality kind of strikes you in the face too at a certain age. And you go,
Yeah.
ooh, this slips by pretty dang quick. And you go, when you can
Yeah.
measure
Yeah.
like friends, like, we've been friends for 40 years, 30 years, you're like, oh, wait a minute. In that same amount of time, I just might not even be here. Odds are I won't be. And so you start to look at things very differently, right? And we don't have that kind of perspective as a kid, as a young person. It's the youth
No.
is wasted on the youth, right? I mean, you don't get it. There's that old expression: you live two lives, right? Your first half of your life, you're immortal, and the second half, you're keenly aware of your mortality, and you start
Yeah.
living in a
Yeah.
different way. And that's kind of what happened to me. And I was able to draw on some of those past experiences, but I think, yeah, teaching, and it is, I say this to my wife all the time. It's so funny when she's trying to convince my son of something, I just go, don't talk, really just talk. Like, just watch, do, he watch. He's
Do.
observing, and we watch him now at 19 do things. And I'm like, aha, see, it's stuck.
Yeah.
He
I mean,
knows.
just imagine this, right? So you often hear parents, and this is not a criticism of parents, of course, they say, share your things. I've heard it like a trillion times. Share your things with your brother, share your things with your friends. I don't want to share. I don't want to share. This is my thing, right? Now, you can tell them to share all they want, right? But they're not sharing and they don't want to share. It's not fair to them. You can't tell them to share. What you have to do is you have to have already been sharing
You have to
before
show
it's
them.
time for them to go and share. They have to see how good it is to share your things, so they've watched you very carefully. And I love this story of so you're walking down the street with your son. Your son is, let's say, 1.5, even 2, right? They're
Mhm.
just about talking, they're just about walking, and a lot of people think, well, they're too young to know anything. Let me tell you, by 7 years old, 70% of everything you will ever learn in your entire life is in. I know you find that hard to believe. I also found it hard to believe. 70%, 70, of everything you will ever learn in your entire existence as a human being is in by 7,
It's amazing.
right? Amazing. And now it's not about facts or books or news or any of these things, right? Or documentaries. It's about learning how to live, read
Mhm.
facial expressions, how to use your intuition, how to feel scared, how to feel all these things. You've learned them before 7. So you've got a 2-year-old and you're going down the street and you're holding their hand and you're walking along with them, right? And you see a snail crossing the pavement, right? Now, it takes time, but the benefits in the long term are the exponential growth of this kind of moment I'm going to describe. You will be very grateful for later on. So you see a snail. That is the perfect opportunity to stop. Now you stop and you turn to little Tommy, Stephanie, whoever it is, and you say, hey, check this out. There's a snail here. And she looks down at the snail and you say, snail is a creature. Whether they can respond or not doesn't matter. They can understand everything you're saying, everything. It's a creature. It's in nature. We're part of nature too. Now, this snail's probably in danger. It's probably trying to get to a plant to have lunch. Maybe he's got to go home later to see his children. Make it fictional. Doesn't matter. Let's move him out of the way because this is a dangerous. If somebody could easily stand on him. You want to pick him up? Just hold the shell here, look, and they get their hand and they put the shell and pick him up and he's sucking to the ground, and they pull him off the floor and he curls into his shell. Right? You say, oh, look, he's hiding. He's feeling a bit scared, but don't worry, he's in safe hands. Let's pop him on that plant over there where his lunch is and make sure he's okay. Pop him there. Then you watch the little snail. He pops his head out, little antennas come out. You say, oh, look, he's feeling safe now. He's probably really happy. And you say, well done. You've just done a really good job for saving the snail. You're like, let's continue on our journey today. I'm really proud of you. Off you go. You do that 3 or 4 times, right?
Mm-hmm.
5 times, whatever. What your child has just learned for their entire life is, if I see a living creature in danger, I take care of it.
Yeah.
That's what they've just learned. So now, at any point in the future, be it a child on the playground who's crying, or a tree that's, struggling, or an insect that's trapped behind the glass window, a fly, your child is now going to know that if I see a creature that's alive that needs help, I take care of it. I help it. And like, you might have to do it. It's a big investment at the beginning when your child is young.
But what a beautiful moment. What an amazing moment.
And that's something, and like, quite often we just walk past a snail. We just leave it, right?
Yeah. I don't think, I'm thinking about when I was with my son. I'm sure there were moments like that, but not intentional. And I think that's really cool. Like, that story is incredible, right? And there's thousands of those opportunities all the time to do these kinds of things. It's around you every single day, right? You don't have to make this up. You don't have to create it. It happens and you respond to it in that kind of a way.
That's right. Play with the cards that nature deals you. You walk outside, it's everywhere,
It's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. So you tell us where. I love so you went to Antarctica. Were you in Antarctica?
Yeah, I went to Antarctica about a year ago.
And what were you doing exactly there? Tell us about that, because I was watching it. It was fabulous.
Yeah. So basically,
a trip too, huh? To get there.
Yeah. Oh my God. I mean, for any of the people listening, you can get to Antarctica, like, it's a life changer. You can't imagine the scale of this place until you go there. You really cannot. There's an iceberg that's broken off of Antarctica at the moment. It's floating towards South Georgia, and I've been to South Georgia. It's the biggest iceberg in the world ever. You look at it compared to Antarctica, it's just a speck of dust. Antarctica is almost 2.5 times as big as the USA, this place. It is gigantic. And we went there because my philosophy on education is you must start with the superlative, right? Superlative meaning the most inspirational thing you can possibly get your hands on the subject you're about to teach. You better make sure, if you're about to start teaching some children about something new, you better make sure the first words that come out of your mouth are the most inspirational words that you've ever uttered, ever. Because if they're not, those kids are not going to be hooked. That's it.
Wow.
You want to hook them, you better make sure the words that come out are the most inspirational ever.
And
then you've got,
when I was in Antarctica, it's kind of cool.
So what I did, I'm lucky. I traveled there with 7 people, and we go with a film crew.
You live in where in Australia do you live? Just to give people context of your trip.
I live in Sydney. You're in Sydney.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I take a film crew, and so if the children are learning about orcas, for example, or volcanoes, which went to Iceland, to do lessons in front of an erupting volcano or whatever it's going to be.
It's amazing.
You better, if you think about the way the world is set up, if you're living in Nepal now, you'll never, 99% of the people will never ever see a wave or hear the ocean. Never. Right? Landlocked. They don't have visas, no money. You're not traveling to go see the ocean, right? Most of the world is ocean. And in their curriculum, they've got fish and whales and taking care of the ice caps and blah, 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 blah. I mean, if you've never seen the ocean, like, it's very abstract. You may as well tell the kids to take care of Jupiter. That's how far away it is for these kids, right?
Right.
So the concept is go to the location where the thing is with a film crew and beam it. use technology to beam that thing into their room, into their phone, wherever they're accessing the course, so that they're only one step away from Kevin Bacon, and that step is me. I'm like, this week we're learning
I
about polar
love,
bears.
yeah,
Polar bear. When we were in the Arctic, wanted to teach about polar bears, and I thought we're not going to see a polar bear. It's going to be impossible. They're very few and far between. Went with Aurora expeditions, and there it was. Day one. We're just
polar
cruising
bear.
along in this tiny little Zodiac boat, and up behind a rock just pops a 3 meter high polar bear.
Wow.
Huge. Comes up.
Wow.
Thing is gigantic. I'm like, get the cameras rolling. Cameras are rolling. This week we're learning all about polar bears, children.
It's
And I'm starting to
unbelievable.
teach a lesson. And I'm like,
That
as you
is
can
so
see over my
cool.
shoulder, there is a polar bear. And this polar
That's
bear's like, raw,
amazing.
and then swimming in the water. And the kids are like, oh my God, it's right behind him.
That's so cool. And you were doing that live?
Doing it not live,
And
no, because you're
but
in those locations where there
you
is
can't beam it. But they're
there's no
seeing
internet.
this like
So
that's
we
real.
record it. We
Yeah.
record it. We put it all together in this really kind of documentary style video, and then we attach it to a sequence of learning where the children go, "All right, there's Gavin. He's with a polar bear. I'm only one step away. I want to get a polar bear too."
Wow. Oh,
They get to do something to make the world better, to protect that thing they've just seen. So
yeah.
whether it's a polar bear or a bird or a tree in Bangalore, I went to the biggest tree in the world in Bangalore. They get them to do something in their community which makes them feel like they're playing their part, you know. And
Yeah.
also for those children who, are never going to see it, it's closer. It's a little bit. I'd love to take everyone there. It's closer, but it's not the creme de la creme. But it's better. It's better than nothing. So yeah, we
Yeah.
went to Antarctica. We did a course on space there, and just unreal. We sailed across the Drake's Passage, and the captain, he said,
Nice.
"Listen, go to your rooms. We're just about to sail into a tropical force cyclone in the Drake's Passage, which is already the roughest sea in the world. Go
Oh,
to your rooms and strap yourself in your bed because it's
I'm
going to
seasick
be
just thinking about it.
a rough night."
Did
And
you
the
get
boat was
seasick?
like,
Do you get
I took a pill from the reception,
yeah.
but it was bonkers on that boat that
Was
night. But I
it?
mean, this ship it's an X-bow, only four of them in the world built out of Norway. And this company Aurora, they have all four of them, I think. And it was smooth enough, but still for me, it was,
Pretty
being
rough.
someone who's not on the sea a lot, it was rough as you like.
So how so wow. So everybody that's listening is going, well, this is just spectacular, like amazing. So I want to teach about polar bears. I go find a polar bear. So
Yeah.
what do you tell the hundreds of thousands of other educators that are in their classrooms? I think about right here in South Jersey. Every time you say South Georgia, I think you're going to say South Jersey, which is where I am outside of
Yeah,
Philadelphia.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny. You can travel the world, but not South Jersey. But what do you say to them about how can they take a piece of what Gavin's doing? Look at that kind of, if somebody's listening and they go, wow, that is absolutely incredible, but that's not me. I'm here in the boroughs of New York City. I've got my own thing. I'm not leaving. I'm not going to Antarctica. I'm not going
Totally,
to South Georgia. What do
totally.
they what can they do?
That's a very good question. I'm glad you've asked it. I mean, I've been on lots of podcasts, and that's not been a question that's come up, but I do have the answer for you. And the answer goes back to a Montessori philosophy, which is the hand is the gateway to the brain. Montessori in the US is huge, and it's growing
Mm-hmm.
all over the world in an exponential rate. The hand is the gateway to the brain. Now,
Yeah.
we know that if we just sit and listen to someone talk, the amount of learning that will take place is really minimal, really minimal. And it's been debunked that, the whole auditory visual learner thing we learned a long time ago, it's all debunked now. But what we do definitely know is that when you go to sleep at night, at the end of the day, so tonight you'll go to bed, right? It's nighttime for you now, it's morning for
Yep.
me. You'll go to
Yep.
bed and you'll close your eyes. Same with children, but with children, this is more prominent as a child. You go to bed, you close your eyes. And as soon as you fall asleep, your brain wakes up at that point. In fact, this is going to be a paradox for you now, a little bit. You learn nothing in the day. You learn zero during day. Zero. Nothing. Zip.
Mhm.
You learn everything when you go to sleep. So what happens is you close your eyes and off you go. Scotty Buell's asleep. And the brain goes, he's asleep. Right. Let's go through, and you have about 7,000 thoughts per day, right? So 7,000 opportunities to learn something new. Your brain wakes up and goes, right, Scotty's had 7,000 thoughts today. Now we've got to decide as a brain, what are we going to keep? What are we going to get rid of? Right? It's called synaptic pruning. Your brain makes synapses as it learns, but your brain has no idea how much storage it has, right? It doesn't know how much storage it has. It has to be efficient. Actually, it has about 2.5 petabytes of storage, which is about enough space to store 400 years of continuous 4K footage. So a lot of space.
It's a
In
lot
fact,
of space.
it could never fill up, right?
Yeah.
But it doesn't know that. So once again, it's very efficient because it has to keep you alive. So it doesn't want to ever be a full hard drive because there's no other hard drive. You can't plug one in unless you're
Right.
Elon Musk, maybe plug another one. Anyway, I don't know. But it does this thing called synaptic pruning.
Uh-huh.
So imagine a bonsai tree. And at night, your brain goes, right, let's get all the 7,000 thoughts and decide what we're going to keep, what's going into the hippocampus, long-term memory, and what are we going to dissolve. And then in the morning, we'll urinate it out into our lymphatic system, right? So your brain goes around all the thoughts and goes, keep or discard.
Hmm.
If you have had a feeling, an emotional response to something, keep. Your brain will automatically keep it. Emotions are really important for keeping you alive. If you feel something, then you better keep that because you'll need to know that later. That person made you feel uneasy. You don't trust them. Keep the feeling. Link the feeling to their face. That person makes me feel like this. Stay away from them. I need to keep alive. That person makes me feel happy and warm and cuddly. Stay with them. Keep all of these. The brain will push them into the hippocampus. But in answer to your question, when we touch things, right? The hands are here for a reason out front.
Mm-hmm.
They've got thousands of receptors on the end. They're very sensitive, as you know. When you touch things, your brain also keeps all of that information too. Keep it all. If I've touched it, you keep it because this is the world around me. The hands are the gateway to the brain. They're my other eyes. Okay.
Hmm.
You'll remember 100%, the last time you touched a hot pan, right? 100%. You accidentally touched it, you burnt your hand, you didn't use the oven gloves. Right? Your brain's like, keep that. Don't ever put your hand in the oven again. That's going to burn you, right? Your brain will keep that. So, in answer to your question, what can teachers do? The teachers can do this, and parents too. If you're about to teach anything to anyone ever, there's two things you need to include. Number one, allow them to feel something during the journey. Right? Feel something. How can they feel it? Allow them to take a risk. Allow them to have a choice. Give them some freedom, right? With those three things, you always are going to have a feeling. Just by saying to the children, you can choose who you work with for the next 45 minutes. Suddenly it's like, can I approach John? He's really cool. Maybe he'll reject me. I'm not sure. Should I go to Steve? He's a safe haven. He's my best friend, but I don't really like him that much. I'm not sure who to choose. I'm going with Steve. Steve, you want to be partners with me? No way. You're a loser. I never want to work with you. Right? Whatever. It doesn't really matter what happens in that moment.
Right.
But because you had the choice, there's now a risk. When there's a risk of things going wrong or right, there's now an emotion. When there's an emotion, synaptic pruning, stick it in the hippocampus. So, want your kids to retain the things you're teaching them, allow them to have an emotional attachment to it somehow, right? Choice is the easiest way. Number two, let them touch something, right? If you're teaching leaves, get a leaf and put it on their table. If you're teaching invertebrate, get a snail and put it on the table and let them stroke the shell. It doesn't matter. You can't do it with everything, of course, but as much as possible,
Right.
allow them to touch. If you let them feel and touch, when they go to bed that night and close their eyes and their brain decides what to keep and what to dissolve, it will keep the things that they've touched and they felt. And so it's very simple. If you think about the way we teach now, iPads, textbooks, no moving, no choice. I've chosen your seat. designated
Mhm.
seating areas.
Yeah.
There's none of
It's
it.
all
And
counter.
then we give them a test at the end of the week, right? And we expect them to pass. And they come to the test and they say, I don't remember anything. Why don't they remember it? Because you never allowed the brain to store it. Every night they went to bed and the brain said, these are just words that somebody said. I can learn that again. It's just not worth storage in the
Hmm.
brain. Dissolve it. Get rid of it. Comes to Friday, don't remember anything you said because you
This is
never
so
gave me an
cool.
opportunity to keep it. So when you know that, you know it now. Like you know it and I know it. And when teachers know that, they're like, ah, okay, now I
Change
know where I
approach.
was going wrong. Yeah. And
Yes,
so
there's
you
an
can't go to
opportunity to
Antarctica.
change your approach.
You can't go to Antarctica. But if you're teaching about soil, just put a pile of soil on everyone's table and say, rummage through the soil with your hands and find me something interesting. Like they've all got their hands dirty, dirt's in their fingernails when they go to bed at night. All the facts and the teaching that you
Excuse me.
attached to soil, the brain's like, hey man, I touched something. I felt something. Better keep it. Better keep that stuff. It's very
Yeah,
simple, right?
so much. So there is so much there, and you've got me. So a few things that come to mind when I hear you say these things. So one, okay, I think when you started off, you were talking about we don't learn all day. We just don't know. At night is when we go to sleep. It all happens. It's the same thing when we lift weights or exercise. We're breaking down, and at night, they always say you don't grow in the gym. You're ripping your muscles to shreds in the gym. You're creating calluses and this and that. And then at night you rest and you grow. And there's something I think there. It's not quite the same thing, but it's there.
Similar there.
The other thing though, the couple of the other things are the emotion and the feel. So two things. I'm a big fan of this kind of like, and I don't mean like The Secret, but I believe that if you focus on something enough with intent, you can, I'll use the word manifested. You can make things happen in your life through intentional focus. Desire is a very strong emotion. And they'll tell you, people that will subscribe to this kind of a thing, whether it's a meditation kind of a thing, will say, see yourself there. Arnold Schwarzenegger talks about when he won Mr. Olympia, he goes, I'd already won it a million times in my head. I knew what it felt like to stand on that stage. I knew what it felt like. I had the emotion. I could feel it in my brain. I was there. I'd already experienced it. And they say, if you want something really badly, try to feel those emotions, try to generate those emotions. I think that's part one. Part two is I love to write every morning. I write in my book every single morning. And the hand thing you got me with, because there's something about the physical act of holding a pen and putting it to paper and writing that seems to release out of me, but also help me retain things. It's a kind of a cathartic thing in one way, right? Love that blue ink. I love this fine pen. It's my favorite pen, sharp, ultra fine on this crisp, clean paper. But that tactile act of holding this pen and putting something to paper, I don't like to type those kinds of thoughts. It doesn't do it for me. I don't feel like I'm getting the benefit that I am by holding that pen in my hand.
Totally.
These are all kind of related, yeah?
I mean, look, I just had a meeting before you, and
Yeah. You're
as the
doodling.
meeting's going on, you're like,
You're
okay, I
doodling.
better write all this down. And
Yeah.
you can record a transcript using Google if you want, but it just doesn't cut the mustard in actual fact. Writing it down. And I listened to a podcast the other day on Radio 4 with Chris Martin, who's the lead singer of Coldplay.
Coldplay, yeah.
He's got a lot going on in his life. He might be successful and everything, but there's a lot of stress, a lot of things to organize and blah, 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 blah. Every single night, he writes down a list of all the things that are on his mind and takes them off of his mind and puts them on a
Yeah.
piece of paper
Yep.
and just says, you know what, I need to go to sleep now. Just put all of those
Get it
there,
out.
get it out. Yeah. And I think that's a very good, we know that journaling is really great and reflection
Yeah.
is really important for children. But I mean, it's just, I think ultimately what we're starting to realize is we're doing it all wrong.
Yeah.
We're not, ultimately, it's really sad to hear this. And I've been this teacher, but, we're teaching kids in a way that their brain doesn't like to learn. and then we're testing them, and then we're telling them you failed.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you didn't fail, actually. We failed. We didn't teach you in a way that your brain, which has been around for hundreds of thousands of years, likes to learn.
Is
We
that
just
how
disregarded that
an
information.
apprenticeship? That's why an apprenticeship was learning by doing. You watched, you learned, you did, you actually worked alongside. You held the tools.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I think, I think it's catching. I've been really pleased with the teachers that I've talked to over the course of this podcast. And I think about the others that I've talked to through our programs. I mean, I just think there's just, I think of Brittany Tarr and Jill Weaver and Dustin Goldie, who's got kids working with cattle and building cars, and Chris Daily STEM, right? Chris Woods can find STEM in everything, right? He's got leaves, and hey, look how this water droplet on this leaf is now a magnifying glass, right? And there are so many people that are starting to, I think, get this. They're learning by doing, and they're creating experiences in their classrooms, because those are the teachers that we remember, because they had an effect. And so you're right. If you're in South Jersey or you're in California and you're in your small classroom in the suburbs of Los Angeles or whatever, the more experience you can bring into your class, and I think they'd be really pleasant for those that haven't tried this yet, that just quote unquote buy the book. Give it a shot, because I think what you'll find is that it will also change the behavior in your students. I can only speak for myself. When I walked into this class, this is how Drone Legends was created, right? I never taught a thing in my life. I wasn't a teacher. I was a guy that was flying drones, and somebody said, "Okay, come on in and talk to my 5th grade science class about drones." And I was like, "Hot dog! I love to talk to kids and things. This will be great." And boy, they were all over it, and the teachers were blown away by the impact that the kids getting to hold this and see it fly and get their hands on the sticks and do some things. The kids that were me in the back of the room, I was told that day that kid was the front of the room. He don't listen to anybody. In fact, he puts his head down and says, "Leave me alone." But you had him. Why? Because there was something, a unique experience happening that they could feel. And it was exciting and it was interesting. Those are always the best days, right? When you go to
Can I
school.
interrupt you?
Yes, absolutely. 100%, please.
I'll tell you why he came to the front. It's not because it was exciting. It's not because it was interesting. They're just part of it.
Uh-huh.
He came to the front because you were invested in what you were about. You were excited by what you were about to teach or show him. And he could
Yes.
see that. And so he's like, if you're excited, then I'm excited. You have a mirror neuron. You mirror the people that are right in front of you. If your teacher is like, "Hello, everybody, we're going to learn about volcanoes. I'm just going to get my lesson plan out, which has been in this folder for the last 20 years, and dust it off. We're going to watch this YouTube video with David Attenborough now, blah, 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 blah," right? Kids are like, "Well, you're not interested, then I'm checking out too." And it's not the teacher's fault. It's the organization's fault. It's the system's fault. Tell the teacher, "Hey, make it personal to you. Make it personal to you. Get something that matters to you, and then teach that to the kids." Because then the kids are like, "Oh my God, she loves it. I love
Yes.
it." So when you come in, Scott, and you're like, "All right, guys, listen, we're going to learn about drones. I'm going to tell you a bit about me. So when I was a kid, I was la, 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 la." They're like, "Whoa, this
Mhm.
guy is inspirational. I am in. I'm invested."
Yeah. Yeah.
It probably wouldn't matter whether you were teaching them about caterpillars, drones, sausage rolls. It
Right.
wouldn't matter.
I just happened to be in there
Probably
with my
still have them
drone.
hooked.
Right. That's cool.
Yeah, yeah.
That's really cool. So teachers can do with anything. I mean, to your point, handful of dirt can work.
Yeah, but they have to be given the freedom to be able to make it personal to them. In fact,
That's
I wrote
right.
about it this morning online. I put it out there saying 7 steps to keep your teachers, because teachers are leaving.
Did I just,
why are they leaving?
Because I took it. Challenges facing education today. I have it right here. I screen grabbed it.
So
It's
look at
awesome.
number 3. Look at number 3, and you'll see that it says,
I'll read it. Encourage teachers to bring their passions into the classroom, whether it's music, art, science, or storytelling. Teachers' unique skills can inspire children to dream big, pursue what they love, and lead with their hearts.
There you go.
Number
That's
three.
exactly why that boy moved to the front, because you were the teacher at that moment and you brought your personal passion into the space and he could detect that. And therefore he wanted to be like you. He was mirroring you, mirror neuron. It's just the
And
way the brain operates.
so I'm always curious, and why? Why did you? I know that you had the effect that one teacher had an effect on you, and you thought, why did? But you said to me that you said when he asked you, "What do you want to do?" You said, "I want to teach." Why did you want to teach? Like, what drives you to be a teacher?
I'd yeah, I didn't know what I was doing. I had two younger brothers and I
Hmm.
used to take care of them a lot. I used to play games with them and make I made don't we didn't have enough money to buy Dungeons and Dragons, so I made it out of pieces of paper and I used to tell stories and turn over the cards and there was a weapon and there was a journey and I'd be telling me a story. And then all their friends started to come over and I had like 20 of them all playing Dungeons and Dragons in the house and I was 12 and they were 7 and they wouldn't play in the garden anymore or play in the street. They would play in the house and we'd do this thing and I started to love it. And then I helped out a local youth club when I was a bit older. But then me and my friends were playing football and we needed to use the sports hall. And we went to our sports teacher and said, "Can we use a sports hall after school?" He goes, "Well, you've got to pay for it. You've got to hire it. It's going to cost you £10 an hour." We don't have cash. We're only 13, 14. He said, "Tell you what, if you teach the grade sixes and do some sports training with the grade sixes after school, I'll give you the sports hall for free."
Hmm.
So me and my mates started coaching this little group of kids, and I just loved it so much. I just
Oh, all
loved it.
right.
It felt good. When you know how good it is to do good, you just want to do that.
Yeah.
So that's why I wrote down I wanted to be a teacher. And of
Cool.
course, teaching is in my eyes, a prestigious role. I'm a teacher. I'm a teacher. It's a thing. It's like being a king in my eyes. To any teacher listening, I think it's amazing. So I was very
Hmm.
proud. I wanted to be proud. I wanted to get up in the world. I wanted to not be, that poor kid with the holes in his trousers. I wanted to
Huh.
do something. So, I wanted to do it for a multitude of reasons. I wasn't sure I was going to love it, but then as soon as I got into the classroom, I just absolutely loved it because teaching is also fun. You get to build stuff and color things in. And, the way I run a class is it's not top down. I say, we're going to learn about volcanoes, guys. Now, look, I'll get the most inspirational thing. And luckily for me, I've climbed volcanoes and stuff. It's like, here's some pictures of me climbing Kinabalu in
So
Borneo. And the kids are like,
I
whoa.
love you just go out and climb
Yeah.
volcanoes. I just love it. Oh, I
Yeah,
love
they're
it.
like, "Sir, you climbed a volcano." I was like, "Yeah, let me tell you a little story." The kids are like, boom, like you with the drone. The kids come to the front when they realize
Uh-huh.
their teacher climbed an actual volcano. I'm
Yeah.
sure many teachers out there done amazing stuff. Anyway,
Oh yeah.
then I'd say, now look, you're going to research a volcano. You choose one. I'm not going to tell you which one. There's thousands. You're going to choose one. You can
And
work with
there's the
whoever you want.
choice. And there's the
Yeah, I
choice.
don't care who you work with, right? You can work with whoever you want.
Yeah.
It's going to be a week-long project. Now, we're not going to do it all week. There's going to be spaces in the curriculum I've assigned. Here's the timetable where you'll get to work on your own, on your project. You can work with who you want. You can, this is the most important bit, represent your work, your research in any way you want. It can be a model, a diagram, a painting, a show, a dance, a rap. It doesn't matter. As long as you come to me on Friday and present to the class and you teach us about a new volcano, that's all I'm asking. That's what the success criteria is. But whatever you do, it has to make the world better. And you have to tell us how. That bit cannot be missing.
Hmm.
So then I would tell the children what I'm about to do. I'd say, look, before you leave, before you go and make your decision of what you're going to do and where you're going to work and what you're going to create, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to build a volcano with Tommy here, and I choose a student in the class usually. I've already had a chat with them beforehand. Tommy and we're going to build a volcano. We're going to make it out of papier-mâché. We're going to first make a scaffold out of some chicken wire. Then we're going to papier-mâché. Then we're going to take the volcano to kindergarten. We're going to teach them a lesson. We're going to erupt it in front of them using some, whatever, bicarbonate of soda and vinegar.
Right, right.
That's how we're going to make
Hmm.
the world better. Now, you don't have to
Yeah.
do what I'm doing. If you're lost for ideas, you can definitely either work with us or do something similar to this, but you don't have to. Do whatever you want. See you later, guys.
Wow.
Bye.
Wow.
Now, at that moment when you say goodbye, it's like, 2-minute moment of chaos where everyone's deciding, who am I going to work with? What am I going to do? What are we going to make? What we're going to create? And then after 2 minutes, it all settles. And it's beautiful. And they're off. And they're on. And it's game on. They're building, they're
Amazing.
creating, they're making, they're discussing, they're compromising, they're negotiating. Okay, you do this, I'll do that. And it's just unreal. The amount of learning that's how I've always taught. Luckily, I had a mentor when I was very young who showed me that. And man, kids run to school for that.
Yeah.
I remember a child, her name was Noor. She won't mind me mentioning it. I remember she was in grade 5 and she used to stay away from school all the time, right? And she came to my class in grade 6. And I remember her mum talking to the receptionist, and I overheard her. And she said, the receptionist says, your daughter looks sick. You should take her home. She's full of cold, full of flu. And the mum said, she used to pretend she was sick in grade 5 to avoid school. Now she pretends she's well when she is sick to come to school. And I was like, I'm onto
Nice.
something here.
Yeah.
I'm onto something. If she's pretending to be well just to come in because she has all this choice and freedom and agency, like you've won more than half the battle. So,
Totally true. True. Make learning fun. I mean, I think that's the key because I think the act of learning is so fun. I enjoy learning new things. To this day,
sure.
I'm having a
Yeah.
blast trying to wrap my head around AI. Just because why? Because I don't know. It's new. It's different. I'm trying to mess around with it, learn it, right? New teaching styles. You just gave me an idea. We're working on a new mission. And I literally was like, no, wait a minute. I just saw the draft of it today. And it's based on real world application, but maybe it's a little too sterile. And I think maybe there needs to be a what's the good that we're doing because of it. And I in fact, I'm convinced of it. In other words, there's not just let's scan the solar panels because it's a drone mission, but why are we doing it besides they're blocked or we're making sure they're working? Well, but
Yeah.
what's the good? Who are we doing it for? What's the good outcome? Is it to provide energy to the neighboring town? We need to link the good to it and completely. I'm going to go when we're going to do that tomorrow. We're going to map it right in. So I want to be aware of our time. I could talk to you for like 4, 5, 6 hours. There's a million things. I want to get to Upschool because this is your project and you said you're celebrating 3 years. So that's upschool.co.
Correct.
And tell us what happens at Upschool, who goes, who can join, what will they get? Is it open to anyone? Give me a little, and I think a part of it actually, I've got a profile up there.
Yeah, maybe.
I need to go back and update it.
Anybody can join. It's totally
Mhm.
free of charge. We have about 150 courses for schools. Some are 10 weeks, some are 1 week, they all start with the most inspirational point of reference, which we've talked about in this podcast. But ultimately, it's aligned with the curriculum. So the common subjects that you might see in there, like literacy, numeracy, and whatnot, they all have the added bonus of real world learning where children get to do something different in the world and make an impact. They're in line with the SDGs from the United Nations. So,
okay.
that we're working towards achieving them. And they're very open. These courses are very open and they're in line with everything we've talked about today. But what we've recently started to introduce is courses for schools and homeschooling parents and children that don't exist anywhere else in the world. So, for example, we have a course just released a few weeks ago called The Art of Living, where we flew to Iceland with a philosopher and we learn from the ancient philosophers, starting with Socrates and ending with John Rawls. So 10 philosophers in over time, in a sequential order from old to new. We learn about what their message was, right? What their message for the world was, like Aristotle with trust, for example, right? Or Socrates or Plato. And then the children, they learn from this philosopher and then they put it into practice in their own life. And we don't tell them what to do. We guide them. And so, for example, they decide on 9 ways to build trust in my community. So they put this plan out. And in each of the weeks of this course, which is 10 weeks long, they then get to do 7 days practicing their own philosophy on trust or kindness or love, whatever it is that the philosopher's promoting. And then they reflect on how they feel or how their community reacted to their newfound, philosophy, and get to see
Huh.
how things change. So, for example, philosophy for primary schools and preschools, that does not exist. That's something you will learn as an elective, maybe when you're 16 or in university, or maybe not at all ever,
Right.
right?
Right.
Now, you're in primary school. We've linked it to literacy. We've linked it to mathematics. It's in there, so you get to learn these amazing concepts, and which I think, and many people now believe, are very important in the world. We know these things are really important in terms of well-being and holistic child-centered education, but they then get to put them into practice in real life, and see what comes of that.
Love
So
it.
there's a lot of courses for teachers to explore, and they can go and enroll their whole class, their whole school. Just so you're aware, you asked me the question, where is Upschool? Upschool's in every country on the planet apart from North Korea. But what's just happened is we have the 5 biggest schools in the world, and the numbers I'll share with you in a second are staggering. So Beacon House have just signed up their entire school network. 315,000 children. It's one
Wow.
school. Yeah.
Wow.
Ryan Schools,
Amazing.
India, run by Dr. Snail Pinto, good friend of mine. 215,000 children. CMS, City Montessori School, the biggest school in the world on one campus, 60,000 children coming to Upschool. So we're clearly onto something. And the
Yeah.
amazing thing is, it's free. You don't have to pay. You come, it's
Wonderful.
all there, ready. I have literally done everything a teacher can dream of. Paperwork is done. The resources are made. The instructions for the kids are done. The instructions for the teachers are done. Teacher training is done. The resources are done. Everything is done. You just need to come, find what you love, click, and be a facilitator and see cool things
Oh
happen in your
yeah.
school.
Well, we're linking to that on this one. That'll be front and center. So Upwork, you got to go. Upwork.co. Check it out.
Upschool, upschool,
Upschool. I'm sorry,
upschool.
Upwork. Upschool.co. And yeah, we will link to it, and we'll link to your website. So let's do this. Parting words for teachers. So the reason I do this is because I have a newfound, I say relatively new, 5 years in now with this venture of mine in the education space,
Yes,
appreciation and respect for teachers and the teaching profession. I
of
didn't
course.
respect it as a youngster, and so this is for them. Right. So this is for those folks listening that are either in the profession, considering getting into the profession, right? There's a teacher shortage. We need more. Um, what do you say to them? What are your words from Gavin McCormack to the listeners here, the legend makers, which is why we call them legend makers, is because they are the ones that create tomorrow's legends in their classrooms today. So what are your parting words for them?
So just to give some context, I'm a senior lecturer at the University of Notre Dame, and I have undergraduates, and when they're about to head out into the world to get their first job, I say this. So I'll say this to your teachers too. You go into teaching to change the world. You don't go in it for the money. You're not going to be rich. I'm so sorry about that. But you are going to be rich in heart, right? That's what you get out of this. So when you go into a job and you sit down with the principal and he says, Barbara, the resume is amazing. You've got the job. You're now grade 3 teacher. Before you sign that contract, you say to him or her, are you going to let me be the teacher that I want to be in this role? And he might say, what kind of teacher do you want to be? You tell him, this is what I want to be. This is what I want to do. If he or she does not say yes to that question, if he or she says, no, 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 you teach those words to those kids and give me the grades. You stand up and you walk out the room and you go get a job at a school that does allow you to say yes. Because if you don't, then what a waste of time your life will be. What a waste of time your passion will be, your inspiration will be, all that training, the reason you came into the job. It'll be a waste of time. You'll have to sell your soul doing something that you know is not in line with who you really are. You are the guru. Those 30 kids, their parents have sent them there to learn from you. And if you can't be the guru that you want to be, then find a place that will allow you to be there. And if we can do that, we'll reinvigorate ourselves as teachers. Children will be inspired by who we are. we'll never work a day in our lives. But if we say yes to something we know is wrong, unfortunately, it's not going to work out happy for us in the end. So we're better than that. We deserve more than that.
Excellent. I love it. I think we're gonna stop right there because that's an amazing way to end. Gavin, listen, man. 5 years now. We met during the pandemic. You're an incredible guy. I'm glad that we met. I know we had some fun times trying to fly the drone around Philadelphia for the sunrise and share it with people. And it was really cool. And it's still there. It pops up every now and then. And we actually did a great job. People were pretty excited to see the Philadelphia skyline. It was neat.
You know what? We failed. We failed to a certain extent. But you know why we remember it so vividly? Because there was an emotion attached to that.
It was amazing.
I took on something which I hadn't rehearsed. And when it came to that moment where you were flying the drone over Philadelphia, I was locked in. I was like, okay, I'm now going to go live on Facebook and everyone's going to see this. All 30,000 followers, all the people are going to see. And I couldn't log in. I couldn't log in.
But the great news is that people did see. Some did. Some as far away as India. And they were literally commenting. I mean, they were in Australia and they were saying, I see it. I see it. Oh my gosh, I can see Philadelphia. And I have my drone going up and I'm waiting for the sunrise. So we did not fail. We learned a lot that day and we did impact some people. We made a lot of people happy that morning. It was a lot of fun.
So failure comes great avenues of learning. I did,
Absolutely.
I've never ever not logged in subsequent to that, before going live. So I learned about, and that's what we're talking about today, right?
That's it.
I felt safe with you. It was safe.
Yeah.
I felt if it went wrong, it didn't matter because you weren't going to hammer me afterwards. I can't believe you've done that, mate. We did it, and it was brilliant. And I'm glad we're still in touch.
I am too. I'm glad we did this. Thank you so much for doing this because this is going to go.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Down. I'm going to enjoy this. Thank you, everybody. Gavin McCormack. Follow him on LinkedIn. Upschool.co. We'll link to everything. You've even got your own blog, your own website. I advise everybody out there to be following, paying attention, learning from you because it is the way that we should be teaching. I'm convinced of it. And thank you so much for doing this. I appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me. And, it's been an honor.
You got it. Thank you. All right.
Shine like a ray from the sun.